All right, good afternoon, everybody. So this video for today is going to be concentrating on the two pieces that we read from the text Borderlands, La Frontera by Gloria Anzaldúa. So from this piece, we had two chapters within this piece to read, and we're going to be going over both of those in this brief video. But first, I wanted to give you all just a quick introduction of who this author is. According to the Texas Archival Resources Online, Gloria Anzaldúa is an internationally recognized cultural theorist, creative writer, and independent scholar. She was born in Raymondville, Texas, and she worked professionally in a variety of different genres. She was a poet, she wrote fiction, she did essays, interviews, anthologies, and children's books. She was one of the first openly lesbian Chicana writers, and Anzaldúa played a major role in defining Chicano queer, feminist, and female identities, and in developing inclusionary movements for social justice. Her main theories that that were in the readings for the selected readings from her text are mestizaje, the borderlands, and the new mestiza, as well as her code switching. They've had a huge impact beyond the field of Chicano studies, as you read in later text. Her writing in particular has also been a part of the rhetorical canon. She's a pretty prolific scholar, and a lot of different disciplines have picked up her work. So to begin, I'm going to discuss the first piece that you read from her text, How to Tame a Wild Tongue. And I'm going to go over a few key points from this reading. So in this reading, she brings up this concept of living languages, and she's using Chicano Spanish, the concept of Chicano Spanish, as a way to give example to a real world example of a living language. So she starts with Chicano Spanish is considered by the purists and by most Latins deficient, a mutilation of Spanish. But Chicano Spanish is a border tongue which developed naturally. Change, evolución, enriquecimiento de palabras nuevas para invención o adaptación, evolution, enrichment of words, new inventions or adaptations have created variations of Chicano Spanish, un nuevo lenguaje, a new language, un lenguaje que corresponde a un modo de vivir, a language that corresponds to a new way of living. Chicano Spanish is not incorrect. It is a living language. So in this quote, she's really trying to harness the idea that there isn't a correct English, Spanish, or Chicano Spanish, but that Chicano Spanish is a living language that's being adopted, and as the next quote says, it's a language that's being created out of a need to identify ourselves as a distinct people. We needed a language with which we could communicate with ourselves, a secret language. So there is a need to create a language that was neither English nor Spanish, that was using a little bit of both to create this new Spanish. And this idea of Chicano Spanish, that after 250 years of Spanish Anglo colonizations have developed significant differences in the Spanish we speak. Other Spanish-speaking groups are going through the same or similar development in their Spanish. And so, kind of pulling on this idea of translinguality, translingualism, thinking that even within language use, there is no such thing as only one language being in use. Anzaldúa's piece is really bringing this to the forefront. Even though she's using both this English and Spanish to kind of do that, she's really advocating for some of the similar threads that we've been reading about in our other pieces. And she also brings up this idea of linguistic terrorism. So this idea that Chicanos who grew up speaking Chicano Spanish have internalized the belief that we speak poor Spanish. It is illegitimate, a bastard language. And because we internalize how our language has been used against us by the dominant culture, we use our language differences against each other. So there is no one Chicano language, just as there is no one Chicano experience. Chicano Spanish is as diverse linguistically as it is regionally. And what she's talking about here is really similar to conversations that we've had earlier in the semester when we talked about standard language ideology. So again, it's this idea that we as actors and users of language can be perpetrators of this idea of standard language ideology in the way that we communicate with others, when we censor others, or when we kind of call people out in the way that we do. We talked about standard language ideology. When we kind of police each other, when we can be proponents of standard language ideology. That's kind of what she's bringing up here when she's bringing up these concepts. And the second piece that we read for the reading from Borderlands, La Frontera, is the new piece, or is another piece called La Conciencia de la Mestiza, Towards a New Consciousness. And so for this piece, she kind of brings, Gloria Anzaldúa, as I said at the beginning of this video, is really well known for her concept of mestizaje, as well as the mestiza consciousness. So mestizaje is this idea of kind of looking at people as hybrid people. And you can kind of see that theme running through this piece. But specifically when she discusses the mestizaje consciousness, she's looking at it as a consciousness of the borderlands. The mestiza's dual or multiple personality is plagued by psychic restlessness. And it's kind of this idea of this being in two places at once, kind of having this dual consciousness. So cradled in one culture, sandwiched between two cultures, stradline all three cultures and their value system, La Mestiza undergoes a struggle of the flesh, a struggle of borders, an inner war. Like all people, we perceive the version of reality that our culture communicates. Like other having or loving in more than one culture, we get multiple, often opposing messages. The coming together of two self-consistent but habitually incompatible frames of reference causes un choque, a cultural collision. So really here she's trying to kind of get at this idea of this dual consciousness, this multiple consciousness, neither one nor the other, kind of this somewhere in between. The new mestiza copes by developing a tolerance for contradictions, a tolerance for ambiguity. She learns to be Indian in Mexican culture, to be Mexican from an Anglo point of view. She learns to juggle cultures. She has a plural personality. She operates in a pluralistic mode. Nothing is thrust out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nothing rejected, nothing abandoned. Not only does she sustain contradictions, she turns the ambivalence into something else. And this is the key part here for Anzaldúa. So this mestiza consciousness comes out of this third space. So it's neither this nor that. It's something that comes out of a hybridity of the both. This third space that she's created. The third element is a new consciousness, a mestiza consciousness, and though it is a source of intense pain, its energy comes from continual creative motion that keeps break down the unitary aspect of each paradigm. By creating new mythos, that is, a change in the way we perceive reality, the way we see ourselves, and the ways we behave, La Mestiza creates a new consciousness. So here, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the movie Selena that starred Jennifer Lopez in the 1990s, but I wanted to share this video clip with you in this film. And this is a pop culture reference. It's a very simplistic way to kind of think about this, but this particular clip kind of epitomizes what Anzaldúa is trying to create. So I'm going to all right. So again, that's a pop culture reference, and it's this, I bring it into this conversation here just to kind of get us all thinking about this liminal space between neither there nor here, but this third space that Anzaldúa is trying to get at. And it's this third space that creates this new consciousness. And she does that through her different language usage. All right. So that's it for this reading in particular. If you all have any questions, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to discuss this further with you all.